All right, so it is 5 after, and we are going to get rolling. We've got Instagram, we've got Zoom, we've got Facebook and YouTube. Everybody's here. So last night we did the test prep. So we talked about some of the most common spelling rules, exceptions to those spelling rules. We talked about sentence types and different ways to punctuate those. So tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to take all of that information and we're going to apply it to the practice test. Okay. So with this practice test, here's the thing. Hold on. Sorry, I have to adjust my fan. It's quite warm for some reason where. There we go. Nope, I turned it off. Okay. Hopefully that fan's not too loud and y'all don't hear it blowing in the background. All right. So with the practice test tonight, I do want to start off by saying that last night we just learned this. If last night was your first time I'm really getting exposed to that material, if you miss a couple questions tonight, I want you to be proactive and I want you to take notes and I want you to just evaluate what you're missing, okay? Because tonight is not a feel-good night. I mean, if you get them all right, that's lovely. But tonight is really meant to help you kind of assess where you're at. So this is not meant for this to be a time to beat yourself up for getting any of the questions wrong. This is a safe space, okay? This section can be a little challenging, especially if this is last night was your first time getting exposed to some of that information, which some of you told me you were. So I just want to start off by saying that because we should never expect perfection the first time out the gate, okay? You really need to establish, from a scientific standpoint, you really need to establish a baseline. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to see what you know, what you excel in, and then what do we need to work on, okay? We're not going to say what we get wrong. We're going to say what do we need to work on, okay? We're going to take that positive perspective from it. Yeah. So all right, let's jump right on in. So for the newcomers, I just have to go ahead and go through my little spiel, so just bear with me. But just to remind everyone, even if you heard this last night, if you are looking for more upcoming webinars, make sure to check out our link right here. This is our QR code. Screenshot this. If you have an iPhone, you can actually just click on the QRs straight from your photos, or take a picture of this. But make sure to check out our free live webinars. If the QR codes are not working for you, if you take a screenshot, you can still see the URL links right here. So I made sure to check on that from last time. But free live webinars, we have our schedule all the way up through May. If you want to rewatch any webinars, okay, you want to check it out again, go to this one right here. But if you are looking, I'm going to skip just down a little bit. If you're looking for that deep dive, so I really told you guys last night that for those spelling, make sure to check out those on demand because unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of time last night. We have a certain time frame, and that's okay because really it's just meant to be an overview. But if you need more of that in-depth look, those on-demand videos really are the place to go because you can use the timestamps to really just narrow in and go straight to what it is you are looking for. So you can really just customize it. You don't have to sit there and fast forward through the video, nothing like that. It's time stamped. You can go straight to what you need. Backtracking back up, if you maybe need a little bit more practice after tonight and you're like, man, I really want to make sure I got a good solid foundation in this, make sure to check out the question bank. We are adding more and more questions. It says 1,500, but we are adding more questions. I think we're probably around 2,000 now. So make sure to check that out, and that can really help you. Now, with the Q bank, the question bank, also, if you did not know this, this is something I forgot to mention last night. If you did not know this, with the question bank, not only do we tell you the correct answer, but we also give you the rationale for why that's the correct answer, why the other answers are the incorrect answers, and most of those questions also have additional information attached. I know for like the English and the reading, for example, I put in an additional study tip sheet for that question to help students prepare. What do you really need to know to be able to answer this question? So you're getting a lot of information from that Q bank. And same thing with the on-demand videos, you get notes there as well. So if you're interested in QBank on-demand videos, but you want to save a little bit of money, make sure to check out the SurePass, okay? Because that gets you a discount on that. And then if you're interested in tutoring, make sure to check out that page. We have 30 minutes and hour-long sessions. So you can pick whichever one you like. I know mine is filling up, but if for some reason you don't see something on the calendar and you need some time, email us at prenursing@archerreview.com and let them know, like, hey, I'm really interested in tutoring, but I don't see a time that works for me. You know, do you guys happen to have anything you could, make available? I know personally, I'm always happy to help and try to add to my schedule where I can. If I can open up something or if I can move some things around, I definitely will. But if you are interested in tutoring, but you want to take advantage of QBank and on-demand videos, then I'm going to tell you that SurePass Pro is going to be your best bet because you get a discount on the QBank, on-demand, and on tutoring. So there you go. All right. So any questions on that before we get rolling? All right, then. I went the wrong way. There we go. So last night we talked about spelling conventions and patterns, punctuation practices, and correct sentence structure. So now we're going to dive right on in. We're going to do some practice questions on each of those topics. So first up are the practice questions on standard English spelling conventions and patterns. So I told you we're going to dive right on in. Now, with these questions, I will tell you, you need to make sure to read the question very carefully. Make sure that you understand what the question is asking you. A lot of times when students miss these questions, it's because afterwards, when I go back and go over the answer, they're like, oh my heavens, I didn't read it that way. So just be careful with that. All right, so I have two questions to start us off with. They are both select all that apply, so I'm going to go ahead and give you that one. I want you to take about a minute and a half. I'm going to give you a little bit of extra time since this is our first set. Take a minute and a half. I want you guys to go ahead and tell me what you think those answers are. All right, ready, set, and go. All right, about 15 seconds left. Go ahead and get your answers in. All right. Let's go through our correct answers. So the first one, which of the following are spelled correctly, showing an exception to a spelling rule? Select all that apply. So C's, A. Which of the following are spelled correctly? Put the questions again. Oh, they're still here. Zoom, where are we supposed to type them here? You sure can. I do like to see. It's a very nice engagement if I can see what your answers are, just so I can kind of see how you guys are doing. It just kind of helps me evaluate, but it's up to you. It's completely up to you. Oh, somebody said I didn't read it correctly. Now My screen is black. Oh, Instagram, I tell you. Why does the screen, I'm going to have to ask Brandon about that. Why does it keep going black? Hold on 1 second, Instagram. I'm going to get you back. I got you. Hold on. Share screen. Allow. All right, you should be back now. Let me know if you're not. I don't know why it does that. Instagram, are you back? Can you see? Oh, wow. Somebody said they got an 82.4 on the English portion of the exam. Wonderful job. Did not read it correctly. Oh, okay. Okay, so the Instagram's back. Awesome. You guys just let me know because I have no idea why that keeps cutting that screen off. Because Zoom and Facebook and YouTube, it still keeps it active. I don't know what's going on there. I'll check with them. Yes, I'm going to go through the answers now. Now that we've got Instagram back, everybody's back at the party. Wonderful. So a couple of people said that they got these wrong because they did not read the correctly. I forewarned you, but now you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So don't beat yourself up over it. Now you kind of see what I'm talking about, right? With how to read it. So which of the following are spelled correctly? So yes, we're looking for something that's spelled correctly, but it has to be an exception to a spelling rule for this first one. So A, C's. I before E. Okay, that's the general rule. Okay, that's the spelling rule. I before E, except after C. That's an exception rule. Okay, but for this one, for example, I before E, this one's C's. This is one of those exceptions, except if it sounds like the long E. Okay, this was not one that we did have time to cover last night, but this is an exception rule. So if you missed this one, make sure to go back and check out those on-demand videos to get that in depth so you can do that one. Friend, that one is spelled incorrectly, so that's what makes it the incorrect option. It's Friend. Protein, I before E, except when it sounds like that. Protein, that long E. So same thing as C's. Let's see, somebody asked me a question. Hold on. My chat is knocked off. There we go. Nope. There we go. So wouldn't B kind of be an exception? Are you talking about for number one? That number one would be, where is my, okay, so yes, somebody asked me, friend, would that be an exception? I before E. Well, no, I before E except after C. So friend actually follows the I before E rule. It's just spelled incorrectly here. So friend is Friend. So it's spelled incorrectly as an answer option. So that's why that part of it's wrong. And it's also not, well, if it was spelled correctly. So if it was spelled correctly, Friend, it would be I before E. It would be following the spelling rule. And this one specifically says showing an exception to a spelling rule. So it would have to be something like I before E, except after C. I before E, except when it sounds like the long E, like C's and protein there. And then receive, see that, okay, so what you're just saying there about B, same thing here with receive, Recieve. It's spelled correctly. Okay, receive is spelled correctly. I before E, except after C. Wait, did I do that one? Which of the following? No, it's not. I before E, except after C. So that one's spelled incorrectly. But even though it's an exception to a spelling rule, it's spelled incorrectly. So this one was spelled wrong. This one's spelled wrong, but this one actually shouldn't follow an exception rule. This one does follow an exception rule. I before E except after C. With number 2, which of the following uses the Y to I rule correctly? So remember the Y to I that we talked about last night. Happy has that P in front of it, so it drops the Y, it changes to an I. The Y stays because it's got the vowel O in front of it. The Y gets dropped because it's got the R in front of it. Cry to cried because it's got that R, that consonant in front of it. It would drop and change to I. All right. Any questions now that why is enjoyed correct? Because I think I just answered that, but just in case I didn't. With the Y, you leave the Y because it has that O, that vowel in front of it. When it has a vowel in front of the Y, you don't drop it. Y is 2D correct. 2D is not correct. That's not a correct answer. A, B, and C are the correct answers for number 2. D is not correct. What's the rule for this? So with the Y to I rule, if the Y has a vowel in front of it, you do not drop the Y and change it to an I. If the Y has a consonant like happy and carry, it drops the Y and it changes to an I. That's why D, cry, is incorrect because it does not apply the Y to I rule correctly. It's got a consonant in front of it, R. So that means that the R being there means that the Y should drop off and change to an I. So it should be C-R-I-E-D. Yes, vowels are A, don't forget E, A, E, I, O, and U. You're welcome, Zoom. You're welcome, YouTube. Any other questions? At the end of SES. Well, do you mean for number C, letter C? Carries? If you add the ES onto the end of it? Because that's the suffix that was just happened to be added to the end of that one. All right, let's try our hand at another one. Actually, I got 3, sorry. All right, so we've got 3 different spelling rules here. Okay. Some of these we went in depth last night. Some of these we're just testing to see how you do. All right, so you got 3 questions. I'm going to put a 1.5 on the timer for this one as well. Okay, ready? Steady, don't fall, and go. Here we got about 15 seconds left. Go ahead and get your answers in. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our answers. Everybody feeling better? Let's take a look. So for number 3, the correct answer is B. And I'm going to go through each of these just really quickly to touch on them. So with letter A, the plural of calf, it ends in an LF. So that means when you make it plural, it becomes calves, CALVES. When it has that LF, when you make it plural, it changes to VES. So that one would be incorrect. B, the plural of elf. So there's that LF. It changes to elves, VES at the end. Half, same thing, halves, Halves is the correct spelling. And D, the plural of leaf. So it ends in an F, so we change it to leaves, Leaves. So B was the only one that utilized the F to VES to make it plural. Number 4, which of the following words correctly follows a spelling rule to drop the final E? So that would be B, dancing, because we're adding on that suffix. Okay. Acknowledgement, that one, let's see, trying to remember. Acknowledgement, so that one does not follow the drop the final E rule. It's an exception. Arguing, that one should drop the E, but it didn't. And then receiving, that one should drop the E, but this one did, the answer didn't. So that's why B would be the only correct answer. Number 5, which of the following are spelled correctly, showing an exception to a spelling rule? So these are the ones that typically get people because it's got 2 parts to it. So you have to have it correct. It has to be spelled correctly, and in addition to being spelled correctly, it has to be an exception to a spelling rule. So not just not following a spelling rule, but being an exception to one of those spelling rules, like I before E except after C. So weird, I before E. That's the general rule, but it's I before E except when it makes the sound. That's actually another one. So we talked about I before E except after C, and I before E except when it sounds like the A, like beige. Well, there's one that's I before E, except when it sounds like the Weird. Weird. I know it's weird, right? Haha. I'm not funny. Yes, I am. You can laugh. Hair or air, not a hair. That's not a rabbit. Air, when it makes that air sound, that's also an exception to the I before E. Okay. C is spelled correctly, but it's not an exception to the spelling rule. So that's why C would not be correct. Even though the word is spelled correctly, it's not an exception rule. Receipt, I before E except after C, that is an exception rule, but this answer is not spelled correctly. So that's why D could not be correct. So C was spelled correct, but it's not an exception. It's not following an exception rule. It's following the general rule. And D is an exception, but it's not spelled correctly. Tricky, tricky, right? How are we feeling? I see quite a few people did pretty well with those. Now with 5, I did get kind of tricky because I wanted to test you and I didn't put select auto apply. So make sure that you're checking all your answer options. Any questions? All right. Oh, good. All right. Oh, by not saying select all apply. No, I think they do typically put select all that apply, but sometimes I like to throw those in there just to be mean to you guys. No, not really trying to be mean, but I told a student the other day, I don't want you to get that false sense of security. So that's why sometimes just every once in a while, I throw those in like that. Let's see, that's what I keep doing. Because they're spelled correctly, they are exceptions. Yeah, you got to kind of keep that in mind. So I before E, that's not an exception. That's the general rule. All right, so we've got 3 here. And I put select all and apply. So I was, I got back into my thing. So 1, 2, 3. So take a minute and a half. Let's see how you do with those. Keep that in the back of your mind though, about those exceptions. So not only does it have to be spelled correctly, but make sure that's what the question's asking too though. Okay. All right, ready, set, and go. All right, our time is up. Go ahead and get your answers in. All right, number one, the correct answer is, oh heavens. Did I not put my answers? Oh well. All right, I didn't put them in bold, but I'll point them out here. So with number one, select all that apply I before E rule correctly. Okay. So priest, deity, that one is spelled correctly. Sorry, hold on. I'm reading chat questions. Awesome. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was reading that question wrong. Okay. So I'll get to that in just a second. So for number one, B, priest, I before E. That one's spelled correctly. Deity, I before E. That one's an exception rule, so that's not correct. B, that one's spelled correct. Brief, I before E, except this one's an exception rule, so it's actually brief is B or no, I'm sorry, that one is spelled correctly. So that one, I before E. So B and C would be correct for number one. Feisty, that one is spelled incorrectly. It should be Feisty. It's an exception to the I before E. So number one is B and C. Number two, which of the following is an exception to the spelling rule to drop the final E? So bake would become baking. I always like to use the ing for that drop the E rule. That's kind of like my go-to. So baking, you would drop the E. Liking. Agree, this is an exception because you wouldn't drop that E there because remember we talked about last night, it's a double E. So if you drop one E, you're still left with another E, so there's really no need to drop it. So we don't drop it. So C, you would leave it. D, hope, you would drop the E, hoping. So C, agree, is the exception to the drop the final E rule. And then number three, which of the following are spelled correctly and they have to show an exception to a spelling rule? Select all that apply. So weird, we talked about, that one's an exception to the I before E rule. Okay, so it's spelled correctly and it's an exception to the I before E. Awesome is an exception to the drop the final E. Timely is supposed to be Timely, so that one's spelled incorrectly, so that's not a correct answer. And then modifying, that one is an exception to dropping the Y and changing to an I because it has a consonant in front of it, F, but because it's adding the suffix that begins with ing, you would not drop it, so it's an exception to the drop the Y, change to an I spelling rule. So A, B, and D are the correct answers for number three. All right, any questions on that one? Awesome. Why is 3B correct? 3B. Awesome. It's an exception to the drop the E. So with awesome, when you add that suffix some, you don't drop the E on it. Any other questions? Why no one from A, that one because deity, the correct spelling for deity is Deity. It's I before E. That's an exception rule. It doesn't follow the I before E rule correctly. Oh, really? That's weird. I made those up. Maybe, did you mean like you saw something similar to that? You're welcome, Zoom. All right, let's take a look at the next page. So now these questions look a little different than what we've previously been working with, but these you have to find the spelling rule within a sentence. So this one, oh, can I repeat number 3, please? So number 3, the correct answers were A, weird, it's an exception to the I before E rule. Awesome is spelled correctly, and it's an exception to the drop the E rule. And D, modifying, is spelled correctly, and it's an exception to the drop the Y change to an I rule. Oh, wow. Well, that's interesting to know. All right, so like I said, with these 2 questions, you got complete sentences and you have to find the spelling words or spelling errors in there. So I'm going to put a minute on the timer for this one. Okay, see how you do there. Ready, set, and go. You're welcome, YouTube. All right, let's go ahead and get your answers in. Everybody ready? Okay, for number 1, the correct answer was A, peace should be peace, P-E and P-I-E-C-E, I before E. Number 2, the correct answer should be A, R-E-C-I-P-E. Looks like we did pretty well with those. How we feeling? YouTube looking good. Zoom says they're feeling good. Instagram, how you guys feeling? Good. Okay, awesome. All right. Now, I will say, the more you practice with this, you didn't really understand the question. So, yeah, they're just wanting you to look through that sentence and find which one. I always use, when you have a sentence like this, or a question like this with a sentence, I always use this as kind of like a checklist. So I just go through and I look at those words and I just check to see how they should be spelled. And I just mark them off one at a time. There is nothing wrong with that. That is not shameful at all. Hanging in there, is it Instagram? All right, we got, I think this is our last one. So let's go through these, see how you do. I'm gonna put a minute and a half on the timer and then we'll come back and check those. Ready, set, and go. And for the person that's on Zoom that said they didn't really understand the question, let me know if they're in the chat if there was something specific that you got confused about so we can maybe go back and address it. All right, get your answers in. Just a couple more seconds. All right, and the correct answers are number 3 is A and B. Number 4 is B, C, and D. And then number 5 is C. That one was a trick question. Oh, wait, number A for number 5. I just was reading that. That one should be, that was not a trick question. Oh, I see what you mean. So, yes, number 5 is A and C. You were looking for the wrong corrections. Yes, that makes sense. So, for those sentence ones, I get what you're saying. But do you see how to read it now? Why is number 4? Okay, good. Why is number 4 obey? So drop the Y. If it has the E in front of it, we don't drop the Y and change it to an I because it's got a vowel in front of it, that E. So that's why that one would be correct. With Mary, you drop the Y and change it to an I because it's got that consonant R in front of it. Same thing with study. It has that D consonant in front of it. But obey has a vowel in front of it, the E. All right. Now that wraps up the English, that wraps up the spelling portion. So if you saw that, you were missing some of those just exception rules. Now, some of the other ones, if it's just asking if it's spelled correctly, then those are a little bit more open-ended. So you have to be prepared that it could be, I before E except after, those are exception rules. Oh, wait, but D, that's not an exception. Height. Is that what you were asking? Oh, it is an exception rule. Yes. So siege. It's got that long E. Height. It makes the I sound instead of the EI. Why is 5B not correct? So that's an exception to the I before E rule. Because technically it should be I before E. You're welcome. All right, so let's go on. We're running out of time. So let's get on to 1.2. Use standard English punctuation. So we talked about with this section, we talked about what are clauses. We had independent and dependent. And then from those clauses, what makes a simple, which is one independent clause, what makes a compound, which is two independent clauses, and they can be joined in different ways. Complex is one independent, one dependent, and they can be in either order. Could be independent first or dependent first, depending on which one you do, determines what punctuation you use. And then you had compound complex. So that's at least two independent clauses with at least one dependent clause. So we talked about the correct way to punctuate those. So we're going to jump right on into some practice questions. So, I'm not going to read these just because everybody kind of reads and processes these at their own pace. So I'm going to put a minute and a half on the timer for these, and then we're going to come back and check. Okay. If you struggle with these, somebody just said, I always struggle with these. I'm telling you, there is no shame in going through what I would do. Here's what everybody just take a pause for a second before you jump in. What I would do is I would go through every single one. Okay. I know you feel rushed for time, but you have more time than you think. That's something that really psychs people out, and their anxiety gets the best of them because they think they've got to rush through it. Here's the thing with these questions, I would go through and I would say, okay, and I would read the sentence and I would break it down and I would say, yes, you got this. So I would say, okay, do I have independent clauses, dependent clauses? Where are they at? If you've got one independent clause, you know you got a simple sentence. If you got two independent clauses, you know you got a compound. If you got one independent, one dependent, you break it down, identify the sentence type, and then that way you know how to punctuate it, okay? So just take it one step at a time. I'm telling you, I would identify my clauses, because if you don't, then you're not going to know where to punctuate. Okay. So go through and try that. But make sure when you read these questions, you look specifically at what it's saying in those questions. Okay. All right. Ready? And put a minute on the timer. Ready? And go. All right. I see a couple answers still coming in. Go ahead. All right. Let's take a look. I love the emoji. Where did my answers go? Oh, I think I got my slides mixed up. Hold on one second. Yeah. Here we go. And it still didn't highlight it. Why not? Oh, well. Here we go. We're going to roll with it. So the correct answer is, for number one, we're looking for a correctly punctuated compound sentence structure. So that means if we got compound, oh, did it disconnect on Instagram? No, it looks like it's there. Okay. All right. So we're looking for two independent clauses. Could be connected by a comma and a conjunction. I know it's not, I don't know why it's not doing. Well, now I just lost my chat. There we go. It's not doing my correct answers for some reason. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna zoom right on in and I'm gonna make them for you. So with this one, it is C. And then number two, punctuated for compound complex, he went to the store. So compound complex means two independent. He went to the store, independent. He bought some milk, independent. That's not a clause. After he went to the store, he bought some milk and he returned home. That one's the correct answer. Yep. Okay. Now that we got that. Sorry. I don't know why it keeps removing my bold from my correct answers. So, number one, let's go through them really quickly. Although she wanted to go to the beach, but it was raining heavily. Well, that's not even an actual complete correct sentence, because although she wanted to go to the beach, that is a dependent clause. That should not be in a compound sentence at all. So that right there just null and voids it. but it was raining heavily. That's actually it was raining heavily. That's an independent clause, but it can't be connected to a dependent clause like that. So, no, that's not right. She wanted to go to the beach, independent clause. It was raining heavily, independent clause. So that looks like it would be good to go for a compound sentence, but it's got the comma, it's missing the conjunction to connect the two clauses. If you were just going to have a punctuation with no coordinating conjunction, that would have to be a semicolon. If that had been a semicolon, this would have been the correct answer. See, despite the heavy rain, that is actually not even a clause. That's one of those introductory phrases we talked about. And I forewarned you last night. Sometimes those may look at first like a clause, but this one doesn't have a verb in it, so it's not actually a clause. It's an introductory phrase. So she wanted to go to the beach, independent clause. She packed an umbrella, independent clause. So we have two independent clauses. That's what we need for a compound sentence, and they're connected by a comma and a coordinating conjunction. So she wanted to go to the beach, independent clause, despite it was raining heavily. That's a dependent clause. So, one, it should not have the comma in front of it. Two, a dependent clause is not found in a compound sentence, so that's not correct. With two, you need a compound complex, and two independent, one dependent. He went to the store, one independent. He bought some milk, independent. So we got two independents. Returned home, that's not a clause. There's no subject there. B, after he went to the store, dependent clause. He bought some milk, independent clause. He returned home, independent clause, and it's connected by the comma and coordinating conjunction. So that one's correct. Yep, that's right. Instagram. Yep, that's a good way. Phrases don't count. That's right. Phrases don't count. We're looking for clauses. C, he went to the store, independent, bought some milk, and returned home. It's just listing. That's all one. That's actually a simple sentence in C. D, he went to the store, bought some milk, and returned home after. That's still a simple sentence. It's all one independent clause. Any questions on that? All right. For time's sake, let's go ahead and work on these. Okay, so 2 questions. I'm going to put a minute on the timer and we'll come back and check. All right, just a couple more seconds. Get your answers in. All right, let's see what we got. And I bet you that it did not carry over my bold answers for some reason. Yep, look, it didn't. All right, let me go through and bold them again. All right, which of the following is punctuated for a compound sentence? So we're looking for two independent clauses. Although she wanted to join the club, that's a dependent clause. She was too shy, independent clause. That's not compound, that's a complex sentence. So A is not right. She wanted to join the club, although she was too shy, still a complex sentence. She wanted to join the club, independent, although she was too shy, dependent. She wanted to join the club, but she was too shy. C would be the correct answer here because it's two independent clauses connected by that coordinating conjunction and a comma. She wanted to join the club. She was too shy. That is a compound, but it's not punctuated correctly with D. 2, select the correct punctuation sentence for a complex sentence. So one dependent, one independent could be in either order. The dog barked loudly when the mailman came. That is a complex. When the mailman came is dependent. The dog barked loudly is independent. That is complex. But because the dependent clause comes second, it should not have a comma in the middle. The dog barked loudly when the mailman came. When the mailman came is dependent. So since it's second, that would be correct. The dog barked loudly, semicolon, when the mailman came. The dependent clause, that there should not be a punctuation there, let alone a semicolon. Now, the dog barked loudly, comma, so the mailman came. Now, that is punctuated correctly, but that is a compound sentence, not a complex sentence. So, number 1 was C and 2 was B. Like I said, A is a complex sentence, but it's not punctuated correctly because since the dependent clause comes second when the mailman came, it should not have a comma before it. Remember, when the dependent clause comes second, that subordinating conjunction serves as the connector between the two. All right, any other questions? All right, let's try this one. This is 3, so I'm gonna put a 1.5 minutes on the timer for this one. Okay, ready? Is that enough time, you guys? Do y'all feel like y'all have enough time? Or do you need more? All right, I'll put a 1.5 minutes and you just tell me if we don't at the end. Ready, go. Okay, good. All right. Let's take a look. I bet the correct answer is not in bold. Oh, look, it did. It proved me wrong. It just wanted to prove me wrong. All right, so number 1 was A. This one is one of those comma rules with the adjectives. Remember, we talked about that very briefly last night. The bright, young, ambitious student. So we have to separate the adjectives, bright and young and ambitious. Number 2, A. Number 3, C. Let me know if you have any questions. Now, I would say if you missed number 3, that is the most commonly missed question because those can be quite difficult with the capitalization. So with number 3, which of the following uses correct punctuations for a quotation? So I remember, because of the tag being right there, I think we should go to the beach. That's an independent clause. So because that's the end of the sentence per se, you would put a comma since the tag is right there. But it's a beautiful day outside. That is also an independent clause. So there should be a period after said, and its should be capitalized, or vice versa. It could be a period after beach, comma after said, but you still would capitalize its. So that's why with B, yeah, there's a period, but there's a period here as well. One of those has to have a comma. Okay. So with C, it has the comma here. Why is it not? It's just not going to point the arrow the right way. But it's got, excuse me, it's got the comma after beach. So said would have the period behind it, and its would be capitalized. With D, it's got no period, so that's what makes that wrong. And also its needs to be capitalized. All right, any other questions? Now, with the quotation one, I'm telling you guys, you have to be able to identify if it is an independent clause or if it's a dependent clause. That can also be a heavy influence on punctuation. I don't, that I, yes, the I and it should be capitalized in C, if that's what you're asking. Because it comes after a period. Why A and B are not correct? So with A, it's got two commas, and one of those has to be a period. It could, since this is, well, that has to be capitalized either way because it's at the start of the quote. But one of those has to be a period. Same thing here. This one has two periods. It needs to have either a comma and a period or a period and a comma. It just can't have two of the same punctuation there. Good questions. Any other questions? All right. Well, that is our practice for 1.2. Now we're going to move into 1.3. Now, this is a little bit of a repeat, one period, comma, and capital letter. Yes, that's correct. With this section, it's a little bit of a repeat of the same skills. It's just different application to questions. So we're going to look at how the questions are asked differently for these. All right. So take a look at 1 and 2. Take 1 minute, put in your answers, and then we'll check them. All right, get your answers in. All right, see a couple people still typing, so go ahead, finish up. All right, let's take a look. So number 1, the subject is musician A. Number 2, dependent clause. So we're looking at B, although she was tired. A, the students completed their assignments. That is an independent clause. They celebrated after the game. That's an independent clause. Watch your step is an independent clause. Any questions on those? So A and B. We're finishing up probably in the next like 2, 3, well, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. All right, let's try this one. So answer these 2 questions, take a minute, and we'll come back. Talented is an adjective, yes, in that sentence. That's correct. All right, so take a minute and go. Good, I'm glad you got that right. All right, got your answers in. All right, so number 3 says, which of the following is a compound sentence? So you're looking for 2 independent clauses. That is A. She packed her bags, independent. She left for the airport, independent. They're connected by a comma and a conjunction. The dog barked loudly outside the door is a simple sentence. It's 1 independent clause. Because it was raining, we stayed inside is complex because it's a dependent. Because it was raining, we stayed inside, independent. D, he worked on his project all evening. That is 1 independent, so that is a simple sentence. Number 4, which of the following is a complex sentence? So we're looking for 1 independent, 1 dependent. So since she loves reading, dependent. She spends hours at the library, independent. All right, any questions? For 4A, the sun sets behind the mountains is independent. The sky turned orange. That is independent. So that's 2 independents. That's a compound, not a complex sentence. C, they walked through the park and enjoyed the fresh air. That is actually just 1 independent clause. That is a simple sentence. The students and the teachers gathered in the auditorium. That is 1 independent clause. So that's a simple sentence. So not compound, not complex. Any other questions on those? Alrighty. All right, I think this is our last one for the night. Yes, complex subjects with number 4D, because there's 2 subjects. All right, so take a look at, yes, this is our last practice. Compound means, no, complex means 1 independent and 1 dependent. You're thinking compound has 2 independent. Complex has 1 of each, 1 independent, 1 dependent. All right, so this one has 4 questions, so I'm going to put 2 minutes on the timer, and then we're going to check them, okay? Ready, set, and go. All right, just a few more seconds. All right, let's go through and check our answers. So it did not bold these. I don't know why it does that when I carry them over. Anyways, so number one, independent clause. That would be C, pay your bills on time. That is actually an independent clause because it has the understood subject you. Number two, which of the following is a compound complex? That means we're looking for two independent, one dependent. So, that one would be, hold on, let me just go through them. Mary went to the store, independent. Her mom stayed home, independent, connected by the comma in the coordinating conjunction because she was not feeling well, dependent. So number two, why did that switch it to one? That's A, or number one. Let me just go over here. All right, independent. That's this one. So one is C. Two is one or A, whichever one yours had on it. Three, which of the following is a fragment? So read, then write. Walking to the, so that would be C. And number four, the subject is actually A, each. Because remember, I told you last night that your subject cannot be in a prepositional phrase. Mary went to the store independent. Her mom stayed home independent. Four, she was not feeling well. So four is actually she was not feeling well. That's a independent clause. So that would be just three independent clauses connected by by coordinating conjunctions. And then four, since she was not feeling well, dependent clause. Her mom stayed home, independent clause, while Mary went to the store, dependent clause. So that one had two dependent clauses and only one independent clause. So that's why it's not a compound complex sentence. Doesn't three have a subject and a verb though? What do you mean? Like number three, C? So A, jump over the fence now. It has an understood subject of you. You jump over the fence now. B, same thing. You read and then write. So that's got a subject. Walking to the park in the rain. That one, no, because you wouldn't say you walking to the park in the rain. That doesn't have an understood subject of you. Hurry to catch a ride. You hurry to catch your ride. So A, B, and D all have the understood subject of you, whereas C doesn't have a subject present at all. Any other questions? Three. Oh, okay. All right. Well, that is our night. That's our practice. If you want some more practice, don't forget to check out our Q bank. If you need a little bit more in-depth look. Hold on, somebody said, can you repeat what you said for number four? Yes. So for number four, a lot of people would put B, players, because it does look like the subject, however, of the players is in a prepositional phrase. Your subject cannot, will not, ever be in a prepositional phrase. So that's why players is automatically ruled out as being the subject. Each is an indefinite pronoun, and that is your subject. Each worked really hard this season. So that would be your subject. Does that help? Any other questions? Of the players, yes, that's a prepositional phrase from the football team. So that's why you see I marked them out. I always tell my students, if you have a prepositional phrase and you're trying to find a subject, you mark those things out. Don't even play with them sitting there. Nope. Just mark them out because they're not going to help you. They're going to confuse you. Take it away. Alrighty then. Well, like I said, that wraps up. You're so very welcome, YouTube. That wraps up our night tonight. I'll be back next week for the reading section 1. So make sure to tune back in. Check out our free live webinars. If you want some more practice, check out the question bank. If you need a little bit more in-depth look, especially on the spelling rules, make sure to check out that on-demand videos. Okay. You're so welcome, you guys. Well, you guys have been so awesome. Let me just tell you. Y'all have been so engaging and just so active. I love it so much. I hope you guys come back next week. I hope you have a great weekend. Take a little bit of rest. Don't be too hard on yourself. Remember, tonight was a learning opportunity. Now we know which questions we really need to go back and focus on, right? All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and log us off unless anybody, I'm gonna just stay up here for another minute or two in case anybody has any questions. Oh, also, don't forget, check us out on our socials. We got Instagram. Some of you are on TikTok, Facebook, email. Oh, there's the email. If you're interested in tutoring, take a screenshot of that in case you don't see something that's working for you. And then SurePass Pro. And then there's our tutoring QR. You're welcome. You have a good night too. And if you want to leave any feedback for the webinar tonight. No, our TikTok's not syncing for some reason right now, so I can't get on TikTok. All right, well, you guys have a great night. I'll see you next week. Bye.